This week, let's talk about a $30 million manufacturer with about 140 employees that got hit with a ransomware attack. They were down for 11 days and lost over $1 million in revenue. Their insurance only paid about 100 grand of it. So if you're an owner or a CFO paying six figures in insurance costs, this story is your warning shot. This company was a metal fabrication shop. They had a really good operation, solid safety record, great reputation with their customers and their vendors. They'd been with the same broker for years and had what looked like pretty decent coverage on paper. And they assumed their IT provider had it all handled on the cyber side. So one Tuesday morning, their production scheduling system locked up, then their ERP, then email, and within 2 hours, every single major system on the network was encrypted. Ransom note appeared demanding 400 grand in cryptocurrency. And just like that, the plant is dead in the water. No scheduling, no order processing, no shipping, no invoicing. They can still run some machines manually, but they don't know which jobs to run, what's due, or who's expecting what. They ended up being down for 11 days, which is unfortunately in line with what a lot of manufacturers are seeing from serious ransomware events. When we got called in and started unpacking the incident, closer to the renewal, this is kind of what we found. Their backups were on the same network. They did have the backups, so that's great, but in reality, the ransomware encrypted those backups too, because they were on the same network. Their IT provider had never performed a full restore test, so they didn't know. In the moment, when they needed backups most, they discovered that those were essentially unusable. Second, they had no multi-factor authentication in place. The attackers got in through a single compromised email credential. One employee fell for a phishing email, which is incredibly common, typed it in their password, and that was it. There was no second factor required, no code, no token, no annoying text, nothing. Once the attackers had that email login, they pivoted to the broader network, and in today's insurance market, many carriers do require MFA on those key systems just to offer a little extra coverage. Lack of MFA can give carriers leverage to limit or dispute parts of a claim if controls weren't in place. Third, there was no incident plan. When the ransom note popped up, nobody knew who to call first. Plant manager called the IT provider called the local computer guy, CEO called a friend who was a business attorney. They burned roughly 3 days before a specialized incident response firm was actually engaged. That delay made the disruption and the cost worse. Lastly, 4, their cyber coverage was an endorsement, not a real policy. Their cyber coverage was just a small endorsement attached to their main GL. It only had a 100 grand limit. No clear ransomware business interruption coverage, and no social engineering or funds transfer fraud language. When the dust ended up settling, carrier paid out the 100K endorsement limit, and most of that went to forensics and legally required notifications. Ransom itself, the extended downtime, the emergency IT rebuild, the ongoing business impact, almost all of that landed directly on the company. Millions out of pocket. At their renewal, we essentially rebuilt their cyber risk program from the ground up. Luckily, they learned a lot. We moved them to the standalone cyber policy with a $2 million limit. That policy clearly outlined coverages for that ransomware, including business interruption triggered by a cyber event, and including separate insuring agreements for things like social engineering fraud and funds transfer fraud, where they needed it. It also gave them access to a vetted incident response panel through the carrier, so next time, first call would be to the real incident response team instead of scrambling and trying to figure out who to call. Second, we enforced multi-factor authentication across the environment, so via email, they had VPNs, administrative accounts, critical cloud apps, all of it. Is it super annoying? Yes, but that single control likely would have stopped the initial intrusion, and it also brought them in line with what underwriters now expect for decent terms. Third, we reworked backups and required offline air-gapped backups and quarterly restoration testing. Every 90 days, their IT provider runs a full restore drill and proves that they can bring critical systems back online quickly. The goal is simple. If they get hit again, we want core systems restored in under 24 hours, not 11 days. Fourth, we built a written incident response plan. We mapped out who does what in the first hour, the first day, and the first week. We created a phone tree that includes leadership, IT, legal, insurers, IR panel, and me, the broker. Everyone has a copy, and it's actually been reviewed, not just filed away. We started doing cyber tabletop exercise twice a year. We get leadership in a room for about 90 minutes. We present a realistic scenario and walk through the response step by step. by step. It's a safe way to find gaps before a real attacker does. This company wasn't reckless, they were just busy. They assumed by having some cyber coverage attached as an endorsement meant that they were protected. They assumed backups were fine because they existed, and they assumed someone else was watching the details. Nobody really owned the risk, and it ended up costing them over $1 million. Right now, manufacturing and similar sectors are among the top targets for ransomware. Attackers love companies in that 10 to 50 million range. Big enough to pay, but small enough to be underdefended. So if your cyber coverage is just an endorsement with a low limit and no clear ransomware business interruption protection, you're sitting in their sweet spot. Here's your next step. Go ask your broker this one direct question. Is my cyber coverage a standalone policy or just an endorsement? And does it explicitly cover ransomware business interruption and social engineering? If they hesitate or can't explain it clearly, then you've got a problem. I'll invite you to take my risk score assessment. The link is going to be in my community. You'll see exactly where cyber sits in your overall risk picture. And if cyber comes back red on that assessment, shoot me the word cyber and I'll walk you through what to fix first. Drop in the comments. Have you actually read your cyber policy? And do you know what it does or does not cover?